All right, everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm your name, and I'm here to dive into some of the most interesting, bizarre, and sometimes controversial news stories that make it onto our screens. Today's story is one that's definitely got me thinking, and I think it's going to get you thinking too. So let's get into it. Here's a situation that sounds like something out of a courtroom drama, but it's all too real. A man named Mohammad Maghsoudi from Tauranga, New Zealand, has recently found himself at the center of a legal battle over a hunting knife. And the reason, well, it's not what you might expect. Let me break it down for you. Back in February 2023, Maghsoudi was pulled over by the police. Now, why would that happen? Well, it was due to his driving, but that's not the main point here. The real issue started when a constable noticed something unusual, a hunting knife protruding from his trouser pocket. The officer asked him to place it on the bonnet of his car. Now, here's where things get interesting. Maghsoudi, instead of just complying, told the officer that his religion required him to carry a weapon for self-defense. And get this, he also claimed he needed the knife to cut his pizza. You heard that right. A hunting knife for pizza? Okay, so the story doesn't end there. Maghsoudi ended up representing himself at a district court trial in 2024 with the help of a Mackenzie friend. Now, if you're not familiar with that term, a Mackenzie friend is someone who can assist a self-represented litigant in court. They can't give legal advice, but they can help with things like note-taking, researching, and just general support. So he had that kind of support, but he was still on his own in court. That's the legal term here. He argued that the knife was for religious reasons and for cutting pizza, but the trial judge, Judge Claire Bennett, had a different take. She found his evidence difficult to follow. And here's the kicker. There was no evidence that he had actually purchased pizza or was even eating it. So that part of his argument was pretty much shot down right there. I'm not here to debate religious practices, but the judge pointed out that he didn't clearly articulate a religious exception, like the case of a Sikh carrying a kirpan. That's a specific religious item, right? A kirpan is a ceremonial dagger carried by Sikhs as part of their faith. So the judge was saying that Maghsoudi's explanation didn't meet the same level of clarity or specificity that would be required for a religious exception to be considered valid in this context. And the judgment was recently published. The High Court Judge, Justice Matthew Downs, agreed with the trial judge's assessment. He emphasized that the knife in question was clearly a hunting knife, not an item of cutlery. So the whole cutting pizza argument just didn't hold water. And then there's the religious justification. Justice Downs made it clear that a religious justification based on an open-ended notion of self-defense wouldn't align with the Crimes Act. So that part of the argument was also dismissed. Let's take a step back and think about this. The whole situation is pretty bizarre, right? A hunting knife for self-defense and pizza? It's hard to imagine how that would even be a legitimate reason. But then again, it's a legal case, so we have to take it seriously. The court's decision here is pretty clear. The knife wasn't for religious or self-defense purposes, and the argument about pizza was just that, just an argument that didn't have any real evidence to back it up. How do courts handle religious exemptions in cases like this? It's not the first time we've seen religious arguments used in legal context, but the key here is that Maghsoudi didn't provide the kind of specific, clear evidence that would be necessary for a religious exception to be considered valid. That's a big part of why the court didn't accept his argument. It's illegal to carry a weapon without a valid reason, and in New Zealand, the Crimes Act clearly outlines what's considered a reasonable excuse. So in this case, the court was clear that Maghsoudi's reasons didn't meet that standard. I'm not here to say that people shouldn't be allowed to carry weapons for self-defense, but the key is that there has to be a clear, specific reason, and in this case, it wasn't there. The court wasn't being unreasonable, they were just applying the law as it stands, and he didn't do that. The courts are there to ensure that the law is applied fairly, and in this case, they did just that. What's the takeaway here? Well, if you're ever in a situation where you're carrying a weapon, make sure that you have a clear, specific reason for doing so. And if you're going to use religious or cultural arguments, make sure that they're backed up with evidence and that they align with the legal standards set by the court. And in cases like this, it's about ensuring that people are held accountable for their actions while also respecting their rights and beliefs. But in the end, the courts have to make decisions based on the evidence and the law, not on speculation or assumptions. That's it for today's video. I hope you found this interesting and maybe even a bit entertaining. If you did, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future content. And as always, feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this case? Was the court right to dismiss Maghsoudi's arguments, or do you think there was more to the story? Let's hear from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.